like what you see here.
Well, I think I have in the manip cams the top of the ridge now.
It's a little darker sediment there, like
Yeah, I would buy that.
reducing environment kind of sediments, maybe.
Sonar.
Pilots, we have a question from the audience. What is the average distance between D2 and Sirius?
Go ahead, Dry Lab.
Co-pilot, do you want to take that one?
9-1, then the zip code. 9-1, then the area code.
Co-pilot.
Yeah, watch lead. We just getting OKEX turned on so everybody could hear me.
Great.
We can speak to that a little bit. To start with, our tether that connects the two vehicles is 30 meters long, roughly. So that's the absolute limit in terms of the distance between them, and we only stretch that far out normally for launches and recoveries. We go into tow configuration, so D2 and Sirius face away from each other and they're 30 meters apart. When we're on bottom, we tend to try to be a little closer. That way Sirius can light up some of the path for D2, can see D2 and see the bottom, so maybe roughly 15 meters away to 10 meters away, somewhere in that range, to as much as 20 or 25 meters, depending on where we are as we inchworm along.
Great, that was a very nice answer. Do you all want to introduce yourselves while we're talking with you?
Sure. Andy can start. This is a pilot.
So I'm Andy O'Brien. I'm the ROV pilot right now. And to my left,
Here's Andy Lister, and I'm a navigator. And over on the right-hand side,
Sitting co-pilot is Jeffrey Lanning.
And on the far right, Bob Knott on video. And we're all with the Global Foundation for Ocean Exploration.
And in the back row, we actually have Casey sitting with us. She's usually busy doing some other details, but Casey, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Casey Cantwell. I'm the expedition coordinator, and I work for NOAA's Office of Ocean Exploration and Research.
Thanks, Casey. And I'm Cheryl Morrison. I work for the U.S. Geological Survey, and I'm the science lead.
And I am Leslie Sauter from the College of Charleston Geology Department, and I am the geology lead.
16 or 17 meters.
We just saw a snipe eel. We saw a lot of these yesterday.
There he goes again.
Yeah.
And they have very long pincer-like jaws with teeth that point backwards, so when they grab their prey, they can hold on. And it usually serves a good purpose for them, but yesterday it kind of went against them. One of them wandered over to our vehicle and poked its nose into our rock box, which has slats in it, and got stuck there. But pilot was carefully able to open the door, the top of the rock box.
Go ahead, watch lead.
Freed the snipe eel who slithered away.
Sure.
And we're seeing more and more of these squid. These are Elix squids.
Say again,
saw them in great
just turn down.
abundances yesterday. We started to see more of them. We didn't see any at first in the dive. Maybe it's lunchtime for them.
Watch lead, you're talking about that organism that's just to the right of the lasers now, right and below?
That's it. Correct.
Okay.
Thanks. This squid is not camera shy.
No.
It's a very interesting seascape here.
Yeah, it's so peaked.
this guy. Get out of here.
Our other dives on these intra-canyon or inter-canyon ridges, we've done both. We've been limited to diving up the lee side because the current's been too strong. But today we were able to approach the ridge from the side of the walls facing the current, and we were wondering if we would see a marked difference. And of course, that view we just had looks at both sides, and it doesn't, at least at this point, it doesn't look too different from one side of the other. There's enough current moving over the top of the ridge, so it's pretty similar.
So I imagine this is a tube anemone. And we must have had a siphonophore come very close to D2. Nice shot of the eel pout. All right, that's probably good, pilot.
Great.
Thank you.
Full wide video.
It looked like there was a burrow to the left side down here. See that big hole?
Mm-hmm. There's some tubes sticking out the other side.
Yeah.
They may be related, and it just eroded away, exposing that burrow on the left.
Another eel pout in the front.
It's a pretty hot video.
So that ribbon-like eel that we saw a little bit ago that I was talking about, the snipe eel. Ken Sulak writes that it's the snipe eel Nemicthes. Its jaws curve outward like long-nosed pliers that have been bent open. Those jaws are covered with bands of tiny teeth that form a Velcro-like surface. Nemicthes specialized in midwater shrimps with long antennae. The Velcro jaws entangle the antennae, leading to the demise of the shrimp. If you see a snipe eel when not swimming, it commonly has a large lump at mid-body where an ingested shrimp is being digested. So we'll keep an eye out for that. I would love to see the evidence for the digestion.
Yeah, usually they're swimming by so fast that we just catch a very quick glimpse and that's it.
Yep. Yeah, we really enjoy your commentary, Ken. Thanks so much. So I suspect as erosion eats away at the nose of this ridge feature where we have just been, it will just expose more and more of that habitat or provide new habitat for organisms. Beneath this sediment veneer is more compacted sediments, and as it erodes from the sides and from the nose, which is now behind us, those slightly more consolidated layers make for mini cliffs of compacted mud, and so it provides great burrowing environment and some kind of substrate for some organisms to attach to and take advantage of this wealth of organic material settling down to the seafloor.
I wonder what this red thing is.
Tiny little snail right next to it.
Another snail
Another
coming
one.
to check it out.
Check it out as well, yeah.
I wonder if that's marine debris or whether that's a biological.
Almost looks like a tentacle of a shrimp, one of those larger shrimps that we see.
You can go back in.
What's in the little hole to the left of the screen after we looked at the snail? It's off screen now.
You think that might be an octopus?
No, the octopus is further up the slope.
Oh, okay.
Snail.
We're moving right now, Nav, right?
I was getting excited at first that red thing was going to be a Distichoptilum sea pen, but I'm not convinced now. That was the red sea pen we saw last week that I realized after the dive would have been a good collection target, but that's not what that is.
Okay, that's what I was thinking initially also. And so the red object is a mystery.
Okay, when you're clear, video.
It's not very active. Yeah, pilot, can we take a peek into the burrow on the left center?
Left center. So just above the snail?
Yeah, I can't tell if that's a crab or an amphipod, but there's something pink
Left
in
of the
that little
lasers.
hole.
Now watch lead or straight ahead?
Left of the lasers. Yeah,
Okay, that little one.
Yep.
All right.
Tiny one.
Looks like somebody's in it. Looks like a trail of one of these gastropods. Went around the hole.
Okay, you could go in video.
My goodness.
I don't know.
Okay, I'm going to try.
Can't quite tell what that is.
Yeah, the problem with zooming in on something is now we have to ID it.
Yeah. Keep going.
You're the one who pointed it out.
Yeah, I didn't recognize it.
Yeah, pilot, let's take a look at this anemone.
What I
the
thought
top.
was an octopus is probably some kind of maybe Serianthid tube anemone up there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the one at the top of the screen.
How much is left in that move now?
Should be
You
coming
see
in
the,
right
the
now.
whale trace. Whale. The where did I get that from? The snail.
snail.
It rhymes with whale at least. But these snail traces.
I think it's your hopeful
you can go
inner
in
self.
video.
Yeah. For something larger. Something larger than 2 centimeters.
Wow, that's a beautiful.
It is a very pretty whale. I mean.
That's it. No more coffee for you.
I
Cut off.
know. Or maybe I need more. I've only had one. Oh, dear.
So this is definitely a Serianthid tube anemones. You can tell by that inner collection of much shorter, thinner tentacles. But I think I heard Cheryl say really beautiful here with the purple and the transparent tentacles.
And Scott, were you?
We are over it and haven't moved. Let's have another look in that hole. Something different. But if we've moved, don't go back.
To the one that we looked at a few minutes ago? Or a new one?
Yeah, well, 30 seconds ago where we said we don't know what that is.
Okay, yeah.
I'm not sure if the ROV moved or if we just zoomed in.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Pilot, if we could return our zoom to the little hole with the unknown organism in it, if that's
Full wide
feasible, we'd like to try
And if
taking
it's not
another
feasible,
peek.
no worries.
Video. Copy.
I think it's
right there.
straight
actually.
down, yeah.
Okay, go in video.
Yeah, I just thought maybe another angle would help us.
Yeah.
Wow. So now you really have to be able to identify it.
Pardon me?
It looks soft.
Yeah. Oh, it might be coming out
It might
now.
have moved a little bit.
I wonder if it's a burrowing sea cucumber.
That would be interesting.
Okay, do you want me to try and get a little bit better set up to look at that unknown?
Sure, if it's not too much of a problem.
Sure. Just stand by 1 minute.
Oh, we might have a little storm coming.
Yeah, I think I might have contributed to that.
These sediments are browner than we've been seeing. They're usually more gray. So probably have some iron content in it. It's oxidized a little bit.
And lots of these gastropod trails.
Oh my gosh. Look at that.
It's a hagfish coming out of the sand, out of the mud, isn't it?
That's great. I'll bet the other thing is the mouth of a hagfish.
Oh, yeah. I bet you that is what it is. That's cool. I'm not going to sleep at all tonight. I am going to be so freaked out.
There are going to be sweet dreams tonight.
You see why I want to see whales? Look at this. Oh, gosh.
That's amazing. In a scary way.
Yep.
See the other end?
Oh, there's head on the other side.
Oh, no. That's awesome.
I'm reminded of the movie Alien for some reason.
Yes.
Yesterday how they came out.
Oh, here he comes.
I had never seen them bury. I didn't know that they spent a lot of their time stuck in the mud with only a little bit.
We just thought that was the same head attached to the tail.
That could be. Or there could be another one over to
Oh,
the
yeah,
left.
that's what I thought you meant. Yeah, I think that was the head of this one that was poking out from under the ledge because he had the little jaw-like features.
Yep, that's what I meant, Leslie.
Yeah, okay.
And the first hole we were looking at is a different individual.
Right.
Oh, I guess I didn't see that one.
We were looking over here, and then this one came out. So this is
Oh,
a different.
oh, you're thinking that unidentified object earlier?
Was another one that was
I
facing
see.
us.
Okay.
And then this one came out.
Oh, here he is
first.
poking out the bottom. Can we zoom into the lower, to that ledge that is detaching?
Sure. Go in on partial
I
video,
think that's
please.
because of this hagfish.
We now have the video to prove that what we say often, that there's lots of organisms in the mud. You just can't see it.
That's right.
And they're not all small either.
Here, you can see the head. Oh, I'm wishing I hadn't asked for this.
Oh, here it comes.
Oh, it came out all the way.
He's not quite sure which way to go.
I think he's figuring this out now.
It's trying to figure out which direction to reburrow itself. That's so cool.
And so hagfish have a mouth that can basically grind. The fish itself will spin around and grind into something like a whale carcass. They're definitely scavengers, and they can tie themselves in knots and use the body to kind of leverage to get more grip of their jaws. Or I guess they're not really jaws either. They're modified
started burrowing, and he's just barely
structures.
Sediment on that left side. Like I don't think it's coming out of this end anymore.
And they are champion mucus producers.
Yes, they are.
Of course they are.
We were talking at, I think it was dinner last night, about there's a fishery for them off of New England, and the Dirtiest Jobs show went along on a hagfish boat one day, and
oh my gosh,
was remarking about the huge quantities of mucus that can be produced, and when you have a whole bunch of them in one place. Whew.
Interesting.
And is it hagfish on the west coast that have a certain species of hagfish that they can use the skin to mimic eel skin? Remember, eelskin wallets and belts were so popular for a while.
Huh.
And some of that was hagfish.
Oh, I'm sure that would be a lot less desirable if anybody knew
Right,
it was
if they
hagfish.
knew. Mm-hmm.
So do we want to investigate the hagfish closer, watch lead, or go back to that unknown?
I think we're ready to move up. Actually.
Okay.
I think we've figured it out.
We've had enough horror for the moment.
Video. Go ahead, survey. Sure. We all have the Global Foundation for Ocean Exploration, and the engineers helped build D2 and Sirios. Myself personally, I've been involved in the construction, mostly as the software lead in about 40 ROVs and AUVs and other underwater vehicles. So a lot of us have been
You see the arms of a brittle star poking out of the sediment on the lower left.
You're welcome.
All right, watch leads or anyone on the phone. We have a question from the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences as to why hagfish bury in the sand and what is it doing?
I actually didn't even know they buried in the sand until yesterday. So
it would appear to be to hide, because he kept trying to get deeper into the sand as we were there. And the first time we saw this, he was out on the surface and made his burrow and went all the way into it.
And I forget who it was, but somebody in the chat room said that that's their usual behavior.
Yeah, so
I think it might have been Andrea. I wonder if Andrea Quattrini is still on the line. Could refresh our memory.
Seems a strange way to avoid predation, because their tail is sticking out and waving above the sediment as they're wiggling in trying to burrow. So I really don't know. And as you said, you'd never heard of it either.
Yeah, I think Ken Sulak may have been noting that yesterday. And Cheryl, as you just noted, they're scavengers, so they will be attracted to dead fish or dead whales or stuff that's sunk to the bottom. And my understanding, comparing it to amphipods who do something similar, is that they burrow in the bottom as they're digesting and kind of waiting until it's time to come out to the next meal. And perhaps, as we saw with that first one, with just the snout peeking out of the bottom, they can kind of sniff the water that's drifting by, and if they smell that there's something that might be edible, maybe then they come out, and otherwise they're protected from the predators.
That sounds like a very good hypothesis.
And Ken Sulak, thank you for verifying what I thought I knew, or had heard, that hagfish leather is highly desirable and accounts for almost all of what is called, quote, eelskin. It has anti-magnetic properties, and a wallet made of hagfish skin is supposedly a defense against electronic scanners that can read your credit cards.
Wow. Maybe we should get some.
I know. And the only reason I knew that, and I'll give a shout out to my friend Ed Melvin, who is at Washington Sea Grant, and he studied hagfish when he was at Humboldt College or Humboldt University in California. He was a fisheries master's student there, and I think his master's was on the hagfish populations out there, and he's the one who told me that little piece of fish trivia.
So our next question from the group at the museum is also about hagfish. Are they actually fish?
I believe they are actually fish, and I'm sure that Ken Sulak might be able to confirm that. Fish with modified jaws is my knowledge of the hagfish, and of course mucus.
Copy that. Yeah, thank you very much. So did you hear that, co-pilot?
Yeah. All right, we've got another fish question. What is an eel pout? Is it a fish or an eel? And is there different, and why are we seeing so many of them?
I'm looking at my biologist here. It is a fish.
And I am not a fish expert, so...
Well, what I have learned from Ken Sulak is that we have seen two different eelpout species. The one that you see on your screen that we just passed over in the lower right is, you can tell him apart partly that his tail is held more elongate or undulating behind him, and the other is shorter and typically curled up. Its tail is curled up, and those two species are Lycodes terranove, that's the coiled tail, and Lycodes verli, is that how to say it? The undulating tail. And we've seen many of these, both species, on these soft sediment areas, and that's about the length of my knowledge of the eelpout.
There are definitely fishes.
So it's kind of left and below the lasers
right now. There, yep.
Oh, I see it now.
Yeah, so they're definitely in the rayfin fish family, Zoarcidae.
Okay, let me get a little closer, and then we could get at least a partial.
And they have a jawless body plan, and that is resembling Paleozoic fishes. And Ken Sulak said that they do just have their head exposed usually, with the rest of their body in a burrow.
The hagfish. He's
yeah, we're talking about hagfish here with Ken. Sorry.
All right, another question from the folks at the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences. How many research projects do you do during a single voyage? So that is kind of an interesting question, because we're not really on any one individual research project. We're looking at exploration and are exploring a lot of different things, not any one particular project.
But the data that we collect will feed into many other ongoing projects and probably future projects as we see different areas. We have a couple set of hypotheses maybe going in, and then we wind up with a whole bunch more by the time we take a look, because it's so often there are surprises.
Okay, you can come back out when you're clear video.
And we rely very heavily on the telepresence and the connection that we have with so many scientists in the chat room to help give some preliminary answers to those questions.
And usually any expedition will try to have a fish biologist, a invertebrate biologist, physical oceanographers. You try to put together a team that can study the entire environment. But we can do this with telepresence, because we can have all of these different experts on the line interpreting as we see it.
There's another hagfish tail.
Yeah, another hagfish tail.
So the team that you guys are talking about includes not only the 49 people that we have here on the ship, which includes our scientists, all of our engineers, our ship's crew, the officers of the ship, but also all of our folks at home. And for this cruise, we're getting close to over 120 different scientists from around the world who are participating in this cruise from all of their home institutions. So it's been quite an exciting cruise from the stance of telepresence.
Yes, it has. And I have such a great appreciation for telepresence now that I've experienced it firsthand.
Yeah.
What was that, co-pilot?
I think we're getting close to ready for another move.
On most research cruises, you would, the team of scientists on board would already know well in advance a lot of what they would expect to find or hope to find, and they've researched it in the past, and so there are fewer surprises. There are always surprises, of course, but in this expedition, we have gone to so many different locations, different water depths, different distances from the shore, different types of seafloor, that no one person, well, at least I don't think any one person could be knowledgeable of every organism and every substrate that they see. Although I must say, Scott France, you've done a pretty darn good job.
You might be the closest.
That's why I hesitated.
Every day on board is like a rolling graduate level class.
Yes.
Invertebrate zoology, terrestrial not terrestrial, marine geology,
ichthyology.
And between Ken Sulak and Andrea Quattrini, we've been rescued many a time for our lack of knowledge of fishes. So those are just two of the many examples.
And Amanda Demopoulos for the...
But I have to say, part of the reason I seem to know so much I don't is because of the telepresence. And, you know, I've been working with the Okeanos Explorer program now for, I guess, 5 years, and I've learned so much. Casey just described it as a classroom at sea. And so everything that folks at the museums and who are tuning into the live feeds and the internet are learning, we're learning from our colleagues as well. And it's always so fantastic to have so many experts feeding you this information.
Yeah.
Learn a lot.
Yes.
And you're seeing a lovely view here. Again, we've seen another jelly like this today. Okay. Similar behavior. It's a nice treat to see a pelagic organism.
You're actually probably a good distance out there.
So Andrea is reminding us that a few years back, a truck containing hagfish caused a multi-car pileup in Oregon. All the hagfish and slime went spilling onto the road. Gosh. I wonder what kind of cleanup crew they had to have for that.
Oh my gosh. A lot of seagulls.
Yeah, seagulls. And then some kind of industrial cleaner to get the slime off the road.
That's funny.
So it looks like
So another question that we had from the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences was if any of the other octopuses besides the Casper octopus that Mike Vecchione was just talking about only have one row of suckers. So we got an answer from Mike Vecchione from the National Marine Fisheries Service National Systematics Lab, and he said, yes, there are quite a few species of octopods with uniserial or one series of suckers, including the normal-looking octopus, or what we call inserates, or all of the Dumbo or finned octopuses, which we call serrate octopods. Thank you, Mike, for that answer.
Okay. Looks like there's a crab a little bit or something kind of just ahead. Sit down and do a zoom.
All right, another question. I think we should ask this to a couple different people. So anyone on the line, feel free to join in as well. What kind of school did you have to go to do what you do?
Sit down and do a zoom.
All right, another question. I think we should ask this to a couple different people. So anyone on the line, feel free to join in as well. What kind of school did you have to go to do what you do?
I went to undergrad and got a Bachelor's of Science from UNC Wilmington in marine biology. And then I went on for a PhD at Florida State and majored in biology, but with a marine emphasis. And then from there I did several postdocs and then wound up at the USGS and wasn't sure I was going to be working in the marine environment until an opportunity came up. But I basically am a conservation geneticist, so I can work on terrestrial organisms, freshwater organisms, or the marine environment, and I've been very fortunate to find this path.
And that was Cheryl Morrison. I don't know if our introductions ever came across earlier. And I'm Leslie Sauter, and I'm the geologist on the expedition. And I knew I'm sort of a nerd. From 8th grade earth science, I knew not only that I wanted to be a geologist, but I wanted to study beaches. Who wouldn't want to hang out on a beach for a living? And so I went to college for a Bachelor's of Science in Geology, and then I worked at the Woods Hole U.S. Geological Survey, which was a pleasure for 3 years on Cape Cod. And then I finally pulled myself away from Cape Cod and went to South Carolina for graduate school, and then did some postdocs and ended up, I wanted to teach at a college that focused on undergraduate teaching. So I am happily at the College of Charleston. I've been there for 27 years now.
I can't resist telling my story just to compare to yours, Leslie. Scott France. I started out as an undergrad as a fine arts major. I was very interested in filmmaking, and one of the elective courses I took was a course in oceanography, and I learned about hydrothermal vents, and I was so amazed that there could be these places in the deep sea where there's really unusual animals. This was way back before we had, telepresence and streaming video. It was very intriguing, so I switched and did an undergraduate major in biology, got a Bachelor of Science, and then got a PhD in oceanography, and then, as both of you said, postdocs and so on in teaching. And I like to use that story, which is completely true, just to let students know that, you can change your field as your interests change.
Yeah, I mentioned that I wanted to be a coastal geologist, and when I was working at Woods Hole, my job was to wash mud for, which everyone here is laughing at because of all the mud we've seen, to wash mud for a scientist who studied microfossils. And that was my first introduction to microfossils. So that's actually the area that I went into for all of my further research. And I've since sort of strayed from that and do a lot of different things now, since I am at an undergraduate teaching-focused institution. So you never know what direction you'll go, and finding out what you don't want to do is just as important as finding out what you do want to do. So encourage anybody to try different paths if you're unsure. And take a leap once in a while. Try something very different.
Pilot, can we look at this squat lobster on the right?
Absolutely, watch lead.
Thanks.
He's on his front porch.
Yeah. Looks like he has a bunch of little trees below him.
It's all done, I assume.
Yeah.
Cool, thanks.
Okay, come on in, video.
Looks like there's a few more of these squat lobsters down the way. Wow. So we were debating whether these squat lobsters actually dig their own burrows yesterday, or whether they take over a burrow that's been dug by another organism, and I don't think we came to a conclusion. And these guys are Anamurin decapod crustaceans, so they basically have 10 pairs, or 10 legs, 5 pair, and the last pair, you can only see 4 on each side if you count on this guy. The last pair is modified. You can just barely see it. There is really pink little leg that's going over the abdomen, or the tail, right between the carapace and the tail. And in some of the... So in hermit crabs, they would be used to hold the shell, and in other anamurins, it's often used to clean their gills so they can sweep it up under their carapace and clear off sediment. And you could see that that would be quite necessary here.
Got some housekeeping to do, too.
Yeah.
Some of those walls are caving in, it looks like.
How would they dig that burrow?
That's a pretty big question, because I guess they'd have to use their chela and kind of scoop. That would be the only way. They might be able to use their tail. I think that would be a little more complicated. Yeah, I'm not sure. It'd be great to catch one in the action of making a burrow. Or if we never see it, maybe that says that they don't.
I think I'd just rather use somebody else's burrow.
Yeah.
Or maybe they dig it head first and use the long chela.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking,
Lights
is
coming
head
off.
first and kind of shoveling it out with their chela,
Yeah,
their front appendages.
Thanks.
You happy with this shot watch lead? You want to loiter here longer? I can kind of
I
try.
think we can keep going, pilot.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think
Thanks.
so.
Full wide video.
All those tubes from tube worms hanging down the slope.
Yeah, that's what
They've been
was thinking.
excavated.
There's another squat lobster.
Go ahead, survey 1. Sure.
What is that? Oh, it's another squat lobster, maybe.
I think we could
Yeah.
all take a turn. Nav, do you want to go first?
Sure. Are we talking on OKEX survey? Well, I went to undergrad at Texas A&M for ocean engineering. And then after that, I went and got my master's degree focusing on mechanical engineering and robotics, as well as manufacturing in Florida. And then I worked in oil and gas for about 5 years. And after that, I made the jump over to full-time mechanical engineering with the Global Foundation of Ocean Exploration. And that led me here.
And that was Andy Lister, the ROV navigator. Sure. So I'm Andy O'Brien. I'm currently sitting pilot. I was in the U.S. Navy for 8 years as an electronics technician. And then after that, I went to the University of Vermont and got an undergraduate degree in history. I was planning to be a history teacher. And then I went and got a master's degree in computer science. And I worked for a company that did ROV control systems for about 5 years. And that's how I met the Global Foundation for Ocean Exploration and jumped ship and started working for them.
Yeah, this is Jeffrey Lanning. Currently sitting ROV co-pilot, and my story is a little less productive than theirs. I just did undergrad, got my electrical engineering degree, and came directly here right after I graduated, and I've been doing this ever since.
The anemone watch lead? Okay.
Go ahead.
Interrupted.
Okay.
Look at the squid.
You see a squid
fish
attacking the sediment. I don't know. It's the second time he's hit the sea floor.
Okay, go in video.
And the hagfish swam away a few seconds ago. Oh, it's pretty.
That's a jump on Sirius.
Okay,
eel
come
pout.
back out video.
Yeah.
I didn't. Oh, yeah, that one. We just got the first one.
Well, this is Bob Knott over on video.
Interesting though. It's happened on Sirius.
Yeah. It's
I have
25 degrees, which
a
is
background in broadcast engineering.
Bridge,
To
did
be
you
a
just call
broadcast
for
engineer back in the day. Basically, we went to a trade
week? You
school.
did. Thank you.
I went to the Community College of Rhode Island. Graduated once, so went back in continuing ed. Picked up a lot of different classes along the way, along with the manufacturer training. I was very fortunate. I was in one TV station for my entire career, and I left there about 12 years ago as their chief engineer. And at that time, I was picked up and I brought into, with my expertise, I brought into the field of telepresence. So I have a broadcast engineering background and continuing to use it, maintaining the cameras, the intercoms, the satellite systems, the video archive, video switching, all the support systems here on the ship. I'm looking into the dry lab. I see our editors out there.
Ready video, you can zoom in.
And well, they're not making any move towards the microphone. I know the editors, for the most part, have a science background. They did their undergrad work in the sciences, biology, and animal science, and then went on and to grad school and got masters in fine arts. In all of these editors all went to the same school and got their masters in producing animal documentaries, with focus on animal documentaries. So lots of opportunities, for people of many various skills.
And thanks everyone who answered that question for the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences, folks. So what are we looking at here?
I was just asking Scott France if this is a Serianthid. It doesn't have the tentacles on the inside like I'm used to seeing. So I'm not exactly sure. My first guess was Serianthid.
Well, that's what I get for going to heat up my lunch.
Scott, can you tell us anything more about this guy?
Yeah, I'm trying to get a good look at whether this is a Serianthid whose inner ring of tentacles have been pulled in, or if this is a more regular sea anemone. I'm going with the latter. There is a family of sea anemones called the Edwardsiidae that are burrowing, so it's a possibility. Looks like it has one tentacle kind of stuck into its mouth, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Another thing I'm seeing, it looks like you can see through the tissue where the mouth is. There are some lines that extend towards the tentacles. Those are the inner mesenteries that I was mentioning earlier. I forget when we were talking about it. Oh, with the soft coral, we were talking about mesenteries being kind of like infolding sheets of tissue that subdivide the digestive space, kind of like curtains. And you can just see them there. They're those kind of light gray, purple. And then that sort of darkish area where the tentacle is disappearing into, a little bit of a pharynx there. So yeah, I would say that this is a sea anemone, maybe the family Edwardsiidae, which is a burrowing anemone. So it's burrowing, but it doesn't form a tube like the Serianthids do.
Aha. Well, thank you, Scott. That's a new one for me. And both Casey and Nolan Barrett thought it could be Relicanthus.
But it doesn't look like it has the tentacles that are long enough for that.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've never seen Relicanthus in soft sediment. Doesn't mean that it can't be. We don't know all that much about Relicanthus, but...
Yeah, the picture that Casey just showed me from somewhere on the interweb looked like it was off the sediment surface on some kind of a stalk, and then very long tentacles.
Yeah, it was a picture from when we were in the Pacific and they would colonize dead sponge stalks and would have these long, long streaming tentacles that would go on for several feet.
Wow. Beautiful. And pilots, we can probably keep trucking now.
Copy that, watch Lee. Full live video.
All right, so our next question is one about biodiversity. So are there more species on land or in the ocean?
I'm not positive of the answer. I would guess the ocean, but I am not positive. It's true.
And I would say, so are we talking about just animals? So we rule out all the bacteria and virus. If we're talking about animals, are we talking about numbers of species? Because the insects, you know, there's a lot of beetles. And so I would have to say land just because of the number of species of insects.
Or do we even know yet? Because there's a lot of species that are in the water column. You know, we have...
Definitely a better answer, Cheryl. So it's a hard question, and it depends to the level we're talking about.
Right. I mean, there's both microbes and viruses all over in the water column, as well as species that we don't even know exist yet because we haven't been able to sample them well enough. And with genetics and genomics techniques, we're getting to the point where we can start characterizing a little bit of this unknown world in the water column.
And 95% of the seafloor hasn't been explored.
Right. The potential is huge.
Yes.
And that number is even bigger when you start talking about the water column.
The water.
Which is one of the biggest biomes on Earth. So every time that we do a little bit of work in those areas, we learn a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
So our next question is, it looks like it's snowing down there. What is that?
So these are, some of it is marine snow, which is basically parts of animals that from the upper water column that are dying and falling down. Could be some fecal matter from organisms, but then it also is probably some stirred up sediment that's resuspended, very fine particles that are resuspended in the water column. We call it marine snow. And canyon areas seem to be a place where this type of layer, this very turbid layer, can exist all the time, where out in the open ocean, you don't usually get this kind of constantly.
Thanks, guys.
What is that on the starboard slope there? Looks like a big one if it is a crab.
I think that same thing is, yeah, check it out. I can get you another move in too if you want. Let's do it.
Sure.
315, 320, 15 meters, 320.
So you've got to put...
There we go. I am almost the exact opposite of Scott France. I started out in biology and ended up in landscape architecture.
1.5 meters.
And now I'm a video person at sea, 20 miles off the coast of North Carolina. So it was a path that I never would have expected to take. I started out in television because I worked at Channel 5, which all y'all know is real close to NC State where I went to school. So it was one thing led to another, and I happened to like TV and video and visuals more than I did science. So now I'm sort of combining the two.
And Art, would you mind introducing yourself?
Oh, my name is Art Howard, and I am with the Global Foundation for Ocean Exploration.
Can come in for a partial.
And Art, you were just answering a question from our Museum of Natural Sciences folks in Raleigh from your hometown. It's kind of exciting.
That is exciting. And there's actually been a couple of videos. If you go to the NRC there's an exhibit about submersibles that Martha Nazinski and Cheryl were part of, and a lot of other folks that have worked with the Okeanos. So if you go to the NRC, you'll be able to see how the submersible and ROVs have aided in the exploration of the ocean.
Thanks, Art. And Art, how long have you been doing this kind of work now?
I've been doing video work for 40 years, but I've been doing submersible and ROV work for 12.
Wow.
Long time.
He does an amazing job, too.
Everybody on board does an amazing job.
It's true. We have a very talented group of people here.
Okay, come wide video.
And we worked with Liz Baird years ago, right, Art?
That's right.
And the museum. So, and that was an OER cruise in this area, although a little bit south, but off the southeast U.S. coast.
Yeah, that was my first cruise in 2000.
Mine too.
Yeah, so, and Andrea Quattrini's first as well.
So, folks, what was that crab that we were just looking at?
That was a cancer type crab, and we've been seeing those on the past 3 dives at least. Yesterday they were quite abundant, and I guess we've seen a few of them here today.
Are they normally a soft sediment adventurer?
I've seen more of them on soft sediment compared to other crabs. We did see some in the rocky area where we were a few days ago too, so they might prefer the soft sediment, but they are not solely restricted to it. Keep your eyes peeled for hagfish tails. And speaking of the hagfish, Ken Sulak a little while ago had a comment about the slime or mucus that we were talking about, and said that actually it's neither of those. It's not slime and it's not mucus.
Submarine canyons, but never seen such steep slopes on both sides. And you can see all the brown, looks like vegetation almost on the sides, but I'm pretty sure those are worm tubes from worms that had burrowed beneath the sand, and now those tubes are being exposed as the sands are eroded and the sands are dropping down the slopes through time. And pretty much if we zoom in on any organism that's in motion, you can see how the sands are eroded and the sands are dropping down the slopes through time. And pretty much if we zoom in on any organism that's in motion, you can see how the grains loosen and start to cascade.
Copy.
And every once in a while we see a little knob of the ridge that stands out, and those are slightly compacted sands or muds. These are really muds that they stick together a little more when they get compacted, and so they're a little more resistant to being eroded by any currents or by organisms. And early in the dive we saw that those provided some great habitat for burrowing and for little cliff dwellers, because that type of material sticks out a little more. Yeah. So here is where an organism has burrowed into the side of this very steep slope.
They're going that way.
And encountered the stiffer sediments below, so it could build a burrow that the walls wouldn't collapse so much.
Go ahead, Survey One.
Yep, I am. Watch
Can you repeat? I couldn't hear you. Survey One. In what aspect?
So these really are like cliff-dwelling organisms.
Yeah.
It
That's
looks
quite
like
a
our
deep
off-bar
burrow.
was calculated
Yeah.
to be 2010.
And yesterday we saw burrows all day long, and we didn't see anybody in them until towards the end of the dive, where we saw a fish, and we were going back and forth about what fish that was all evening yesterday. It's still a bit of a mystery. The fish that we thought it was hadn't been found at that kind of depth. Is usually a much more shallow fish. So,
what was it called? A midshipman?
Midshipman. Mm-hmm.
And it fit the burrow perfectly. So
yeah.
dive was that on?
Yesterday.
Yesterday.
Oh, cool. I
It was
missed
at
that.
the very end of the dive that we finally saw something living in one of the burrows.